What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. And break down why Tesla's looking for a nice pump right here as we're trying to hold above 335. And if we hold this, we could be looking for even more upside. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, as far as Tesla's going, we're trying to gap up during the pre-markets and we're holding up very well. We gapped up to 333 and we need to hold above this. If we don't, we're going to likely fill this gap back down to 330 or below. As long as we're above that, we're looking for an attempt to hold above 335. If we do, I think we could be testing almost 340 and potentially even higher levels around 344 if that breaks. So for now, Tesla's attempting to break out, but we need to see if this holds for confirmation. And we're getting some good news. So the first good piece of news is that Tesla has formally submitted a request for an electricity license to the British energy regulator Ofgem, and that's some good news that's come out. If approved, the move could pave the way for Elon Musk's company to compete with big firms that dominate the UK energy market. And this push for an electricity license comes after they have endured, a big sales slump across Europe. So this is some very, very big news, and this could really greatly benefit Tesla. This could help them be a lot more competitive in Europe, and then this is only the start, at least so far. So good news, at least so far. And then on top of this, there's been some more news about what's happening with the robotaxi. So Tesla's been operating a limited ride-hailing service in Austin, Texas, but a new state law requires the company to get a permit to operate driverless vehicles. And this week, what happened was the robotaxi was just granted a permit to operate a ride-hailing service. So now it's official; they got their necessary permits as a part of the new regulations that came out. So that's good news for the robotaxi, and that's once again been very, very positive. And then on top of this, I do want to remind everyone that there has been a 90-day pause on higher tariffs on China, and that 90-day pause is going to be expiring this Tuesday. Back in April, when President Trump had basically delayed the tariffs on China. So we're going to see what happens if there's going to be a new deal, if something else happens. But the 90-day pause on these tariffs on China is going to be expiring. We're going to see if President Trump extends it or not, or what's going to happen as we're seeing trade talks continuing. So we're going to see what happens, at least for the time being. On top of this, I just want to mention that Elon Musk made it very clear that there's very limited time yet. Again, he reposted this. So there's limited time to get the $7,500 federal tax credits to qualify for it because it's going to be ending by September 30th. Tesla said the sooner you order, the sooner you could pick it up for this deal. So there's going to be a lot of urgency for this the closer it gets to the end of the quarter. That's the reason why when you see data about how their sales are down, I'm not really completely worried about that. We're going to see what happens as we get closer to the end of the quarter, as more buyers will likely come back as we're seeing the end of the EV tax credits. So yes, the sales in China are currently down 15%. In some regions like South Korea, they're up. Other regions like in Germany, UK, they're down, and the list goes on. But this is just very, very early into the quarter. We still have almost 2 months left, so we'll see how Tesla does. Last but not least, I just want to remind you all today is Monday, August 11th. It's the last full day of trading until CPI comes out. We have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions, but then tomorrow, before market open, we have the CPI data. We have core CPI and all items CPI. We're expecting a slight increase on the year-over-year basis, so we'll see how that ends up going. On top of this, there's been some news about how the US wants to cut the revenue from Nvda and AMD from their Chinese sales, basically. They have once again agreed that they're going to be giving the White House 15% of their revenues from the chip sales in China in exchange for their ability to get export licenses for particular chips. That is some big news that's come out, so that's going to be very important, so keep that in mind. Besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy, at least on the news. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, let's focus now on Tesla. So there's two levels to watch for, okay? Number one, we're going to be watching to see, can Tesla sustain this rally? Can we hold above 335? If we do, this is going to be looking for an attempt for 340. We're going to try to push for these highs over here around 338 to 340. That's going to be our next potential target if we hold above the right levels. So we're looking for essentially 338 to 340 right back up here, and we're going to see how it goes as we try to test that. But if you want to be a bear, you want to see us basically fail at 333.5. If that fails us, we could be dipping to fill this gap over here around 329. So right now we're above 335, which is a good sign. I want to see us hold above this support here. That's going to be a good sign. As long as we're above this, we do have the potential to go higher. So as long as we're above this green line, we're looking better. But if we fall below this red line right here, which is where 333.5 happens to be, Tesla could be dipping to fill the gap back down to 330. Hopefully, we hold above 335. If so, we could continue to consolidate in the uptrend. We could try to push for this target up here, but there is a tough resistance closer to 340. So we'll see how well Tesla holds up. There is a range between 333 and 340 to watch for, but hopefully we try to push a bit higher as long as we can hold above 335. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. As far as SPYs going, I do want to give you guys a warning about this. Okay, we're trying to push higher. We're doing well. We could attempt to go a bit higher. But this morning during the pre-market, we're just essentially consolidating. We have this rising wedge-like pattern. So we need to hold above 638 to go for the all-time high. If we don't hold this, expect some consolidation. Then if we lose 635, then we could be tipping back down towards like 633 or below off this rising wedge. So you want to be very careful. There's news that the tariffs on China, they're going to be once again imposed again tomorrow unless President Trump extends the pause. That's one catalyst. The second catalyst is CPI, which is expected to be hot. The third catalyst is that President Trump has announced that the White House is going to be collecting 15% of the revenue from China sales for AMD and Nvda, and then we're also looking at some chip tariffs. So we're going to see how all this affects us. If we hold above 638, we're looking for the all-time high. But if we turn back down and we lose support at 635, we could be dipping to like 631 or below. There is a rising wedge on SPY, so we're going to see if this leads to some kind of sell-off or not. For now, and what my prediction from yesterday was that there might be a little consolidation. We could still attempt to go to all-time highs if 638 holds, go a little bit higher, but be careful with this rising wedge. There's a risk of downside in case we get some kind of rejection. On the QQQ, we're very flat right now. We're flat like Kansas. We're flat. We're just not really doing a whole lot. If we break 575, we're looking for the all-time high. If we can't, we're looking for support down here around 573. So I do expect us to chop around. If we lose 573, we're returning to 570. If we break 575, we're looking for a push. And I do see some consolidation before we potentially dip lower. As you could tell, we have a rising wedge, so you want to be very careful just to see how things go. That could lead to some downside, at least nonetheless. The IWM is very, very tight right here. If we end up losing support at 220, we're looking for a dump. But if we break past 222, we're looking for a push towards this resistance. I anticipate that there's going to be some consolidation here. But be careful. This could be, this could even be resembling a diamond reversal candle pattern. And that could lead to downside. So we're going to see if this ends up panning out or not. So I do want to warn you guys to be kind of careful with this. So we'll see. Is this going to resemble a pattern like that? Are we about to see a diamond reversal? And is this about to turn down? So I do want to warn you about the IWM. This is looking a little bit weaker. I do expect some tightness, but there is that risk of us slowing down. ES is still bullish. We could still uptrend as long as we don't end up losing essentially 6,400. We could try to go a little bit higher like this. 6,450 to 6,400 is going to be our range, but if we lose 6,400, we could be dumping a lot lower towards 6,335. So look for some consolidation. We'll see if we turn down or continue to push. We might consolidate and try to uptrend for a bit, but there's going to be a risk of downside in case we get some kind of rejection. So keep that in mind. For NQ, we're making higher highs and higher lows, but keep in mind that there is like some consolidation like this. We're very close to the all-time high here, so be careful around 23,800. We need to break that to continue. If not, if we lose 23,575, we could be turning back down. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So be very careful with that. Bitcoin pumped very nicely to 122,000. Like we said before, there's a chop zone here. So I expect it to chop around between 120 and 118,000. Not really doing a whole lot. On Nvda, we were pumping, but now we're starting to slow down with the chip news. Watch 180. If it doesn't hold, this could be trending down to 177. There's a rising wedge, so be careful. Aapl pumped very nice. We're going to see if we could hold 226. If not, we could be returning towards the 222 area or below. So break 230, you're bullish, but lose 226, you're going to be turning back down. So give that the time it needs. Palantir is slowing down here. We're going to see if 188 breaks. If not, we're looking for 182. For AMD, we're rejecting here. So as you can tell with AMD, we have like a flag. We need to hold above 172 to push higher, but we have 169 as support. If that doesn't hold, there's a gap to fill down here around 165. For Coinbase, we're technically on a downtrend. We have a gap to fill down here around 310. We did pump very nicely, but be careful. There's a gap to fill at 310. We're going to see how that goes. For Amazon, we're kind of flat here. We're going to see if we hold 221. If not, we could be turning to like 218. I expect some consolidation. Meta could be looking for 780 again. We'll watch to see if we reject off it. Might be going a little bit higher. We're still technically in this range. Google might be retesting 200. We're going to see if we bounce off that or not, but it might be coming down a bit. Microsoft is favoring 525. We'll see if we reject off that or not. The VIX, it might be dipping a bit to fill this gap. Maybe the market pushes a bit, but be careful as we have a falling wedge. This could lead to a breakout on the VIX and some downside for the markets. So you want to be very careful. With that being said, my view of the market is quite simple. We might try to consolidate and go a little higher temporarily, but be careful. There are rising wedges on ES by the QQQ, on Nvda, and that could lead to some downsides. So we're going to see what happens with the CPI report and all this data that's coming out. But as far as Tesla goes, it's showing some resilience. We're going to see if we could hold above 335 or not. If we hold above 335, we could be pushing for 340. If we don't hold 335, we're looking for a retest of 333. And if 333 does not hold, there's a big gap to fill at 330 or below. So watch your levels just to be safe. Right now, we're kind of consolidating around the 335s, and we'll see if we break and hold above that or not. I want to see us close above 335 on the 4-hour basis. For us to remain bullish. If not, Tesla could be making a U-turn right back down to fill this gap at 330. All right, so I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.